So today I want to talk about relocation, and specifically what is the information you absolutely must have if you are working with a candidate that's going to require relocation. See, one of the biggest mistakes recruiters make is when they ask a candidate if they're able to relocate, they just take their word for it and take it at face value because they got the answer they were looking for and they just move on. And take it from someone who relocates probably 5 to 10 people per year. If you are going to rely on your candidate and just take them at face value that they're able to relocate and don't ask all of the necessary follow-up questions, I can promise you that you may get away with it once, but over the course of time, you are going to be very unpleasantly surprised at the end of the process if you don't ask these critical questions. So when I have a candidate that is going to require relocation for one of my positions, the first thing I'll do is that when I start to dig in about relocation is I will basically ask them, look, I have to ask you some pretty personal questions here. I hope it's okay, but I'm just doing my job. And so they're generally fine with that, but you may want to kind of preface what you're about to start asking them, right? So the first thing I ask is, who else besides you will be involved in the relocations? Who else besides you is relocating? So that's really like who else is in your family, right? So, the best case scenario is you have someone who's not married and has no girlfriend or spouse or anything like that, no significant other. But a lot of people have families, right? So if someone's married or has a significant other, what does that person work, right? And what does that person do for a living? If they have a significant other or spouse that works, and you find out what they do, is their position mobile? Will they be able to easily move to the new location in their new position? If if you have a spouse or a significant other that works from home, great. But if you have a situation where you have a spouse that works and has a pretty good job, and that job is not going to be able to transfer to a new location, you need to then turn around and ask, is the loss of income, the short-term loss of income of your spouse, going to factor in to your decision here, right? You need to know these things, right? Another thing you have to understand is, have you already discussed the possibility of relocation with your spouse, right? So if I can guarantee you, and I've seen this before, is that there's a lot of people out there who don't want to broach this topic with their spouse or the family until things become a little bit more real. But the problem is you don't want to be getting candidates into an interview process who haven't already discussed the possibility of relocation with their family, right? Now, if they have kids, you want to ask what grades are the kids in? Right? So if kids in high school is the number one reason why people do not relocate, because of high school transcripts that affect college applications and things like that. So you find out what grades the kids in are, because if they have children who are in high school, that could be a really big potential problem and a red flag. So now you move over to the home. Do you own a home or do you rent? If they own, you need to find out, is your house underwater or you're upside down on your house? So is your house currently worth less money than what you paid for it, right? Because if it's worth less money than what you paid for it, you're obviously, if you sell that house, you are going to have to pay back money to the bank, and that could really negatively affect your decision in the end, right? Some relocation packages account for some loss on a home, but many don't, and usually it's not much that they account for, even the ones that they do. So you need to find that out. If they're a renter, what's the situation with your lease? Can you break your lease? How many months are left on your lease? If you break it, what's the penalty going to be? So you need to find that out. Another thing you might want to do is find out how large of a home that they live in, right? So if you're sitting here with a family with a bunch of kids and they have a pretty large house, You need to figure out, what's that going to look like in the new location. If there is a major cost of living difference, right? So if you're in the United States, for instance, let's say you're moving someone to San Francisco, right? And the person lives in like Pennsylvania or like Atlanta, Georgia, where you can get a really nice house for like 300 grand, right? Well, if they're living in like a 3,500 square foot house that they paid $400,000 for, now suddenly they have to move to San Francisco and realize that that same house is going to cost them, $1.5 to $2 million. That's going to be a huge problem, right? So you need to really understand the size of the house and then also the cost of living and bring it up with them and challenge them on it. Have you done your research on what the cost of living is going to be from a housing perspective in this area versus where you are right now? So you have to really ask all of those questions going in. If you've covered all of those topics, you're probably going to be okay. All right, but understand this. I mean, you should dig a little bit deeper. I would, as a suggestion, I would Google the person's house, your candidate's house, and figure out, what did they pay for the house? What's the size of the house? What is it worth? And then look for that same house in the new location yourself. So do a search as if you were looking for a house yourself with that same criteria and really understand what that difference is going to be. Because I can assure you that most candidates don't do any of this work up front. They do it all at the end. And all of a sudden they have an offer and everything becomes real, and then they start doing the stuff that they should have done at the beginning at the end, and you will lose a deal because of it. And believe me, it doesn't take too many deals that, it doesn't take you losing too many deals to understand that, man, I need to do some of this homework up front. So anyway, that's the information that you need to know. Those are the questions you need to ask. Hope you got some value out of it. If you did, share the video. And if you're watching this on LinkedIn, I do these videos live on Facebook. I don't put every single video on LinkedIn, so if you're interested in hearing these, come check me out on Facebook. I have a fan page, Brian Safchik. Like the fan page, and you'll be able to see all of the videos. All right, have a great day, everyone.